So your flight was canceled. Now what? Let me acknowledge, if you are at the airport and your flight has been canceled and you're trying to depart, you're going to have to move fast. After all, everyone else who has been on that same canceled flight is looking to make these same moves as you are. So with that, let's dive into the most important steps you need to take if your flight has been canceled in order from most important and what must be done first. Number one is to get rebooked on another flight. The reality is that most airlines will automatically book you on the next departing flight. This can certainly be helpful, and you should check your mobile app or the airline's website to see what flight you've been automatically rebooked on. There might also be another alternative flight that's actually better for you that's not necessarily the next departing flight. It might even be at a nearby airport or later in the day. If that's the case, you can typically contact customer service to get put on the most ideal flight for you. Airlines that have partner airlines might also put you on a different flight with that partner airline. But again, that assumes that the airline has a partner airline and that partner airline is running a flight to the destination that you need to go to. Now, I mentioned that you'll typically automatically be rebooked, but if you haven't been, or if you've been rebooked on a flight that's not going to work for you, you're going to need to contact customer service. If you're in the midst of a big airline meltdown, that could be hours on hold with customer service. If you're at the airport, it might be better to head directly to the customer service counter and talk to a human. Again, though, you're going to need to move fast because everyone else on that canceled flight is also headed that way. Now, I mentioned that all of the major US airlines have pledged to automatically rebook you on the next departing flight or a flight with one of their airline partners, but here lies a problem, and that's that the next departing flight might not necessarily be until tomorrow. In fact, if you're in the midst of a huge airline meltdown, that next departing flight might not even be for a few days. The airline likely isn't going to bump someone from tomorrow's flight just to get you on board because your flight was canceled. You'll have to wait until the next available flight, and that could be many days from now, and that might not work for the nature of your travel plans, especially if you have a wedding or a graduation that you can't miss. If that's the case, you'll likely have to pay cash to book another flight on a completely separate airline. Booking last-minute flights can be expensive. But here is a dose of good news, and that's that you might not necessarily have to pay for it. And that brings me to my next point, and that's if you hold travel insurance. Travel insurance can be a big money saver, assuming that you have it. Of course, policies vary by the type of travel insurance that you purchased, but often if your flight has been canceled, that travel insurance company will help you get on another flight and they'll help you pay for it. Of course, check with your individual travel insurance policy before just booking a flight on another airline and make sure that they actually do cover it and make sure it's for a covered reason. Some travel insurance policies will only cover a new flight if it's a certain reason, like they might cover it in events of extreme weather, but not just because the airline decided to cancel it because they didn't have enough staff. Again, everything varies by policy, so check with yours. Now, even if you didn't purchase a travel insurance policy, you might still hold travel insurance. That's because many premium travel credit cards offer travel insurance as a benefit for trips paid for on that card. Check with the credit card that you use to pay for your trip because you might unknowingly have travel insurance. My next piece of advice is to find an alternative route to get to your destination. That could mean a flight and perhaps a flight taken to a nearby airport, but there are also other ways that you might consider getting there. You might book a rental car. And it is actually something of a myth that one-way rental cars are always more expensive. They can be, but actually sometimes they're cheaper if that rental car company needs to direct cars to another location anyway. Also, the good news is that rental cars tend to be cheaper when booked last minute. A NerdWallet analysis found that rental cars are actually about 15% cheaper when booked less than a week out versus booked a few months out. Of course, don't overlook other means of transportation like trains. Your next step is to get compensation. Now, I mentioned that all the US airlines have pledged to rebook you on another flight, but most of the major US airlines have also pledged alternative compensation in addition to that. I'm talking about things like meal vouchers or hotel vouchers if your flight delay or cancellation results in you having to stay in a city over the night. You can see what each airline has pledged to offer you by visiting the US Department of Transportation's customer service dashboard, which spells out in a neat table what you are entitled to based on that airline. Make sure that you're getting that extra meal voucher so you're not having to pay for those things out of pocket. Now, your next step is to find your luggage. Typically, you can contact your airline's customer service desk to find where your luggage is, and you might want to retrieve it if it's already been checked and you're waiting at the airport. Typically, they can help you retrieve this. Here's one piece of advice, and that's before you travel to insert something like an Apple AirTag or a Samsung Smart Tag inside of your luggage. This way, if you do get separated from your luggage, you can track where it is in real time. Additionally, my other piece of advice is to never put anything in your checked luggage that you can't afford to part with. I'm talking about things like prescription medications or just goods that simply can't be replaced, like personal mementos. And keep in mind, even if you have that roller bag that you think will fit in the carry-on overhead, you might be forced to check it anyway. So just ensure you either take those things out or, again, have that tag in there so you can track where your luggage is. I also earlier mentioned travel insurance, and most travel insurance policies include a sub-policy called lost luggage insurance. This can be really helpful if you've been separated for your bags for a day or two. If you have this policy, typically they will reimburse you for the things that you're missing for those days. So if you need to expense pajamas and toothpaste, you can get those things covered. If you truly can't get on another departing flight tonight, well, it's time to make alternative plans. You're probably looking for a hotel. Now, I mentioned that many airlines will put you up in a hotel overnight, but if they won't, or that hotel is not working for you, you can use sites like Hotel Tonight to find last-minute discount hotel rooms. In addition to those discount hotel rooms, you might be looking for entertainment. The optimist in me says that this is a good time to nab those last-minute tickets to shows using websites like TodayTix. Now, if your flight has been canceled or delayed, but not long enough to actually leave the airport, you might decide to stay in the airport and just hang out. If you're stuck in an airport, my best piece of advice is to turn to airport lounges. Now, many people think that airport lounges are reserved for people with first or business class fares or people with high levels of elite status, and that's not untrue. However, you can also often access airport lounges by holding certain premium travel credit cards. Many have benefits like Priority Pass, which is a membership program getting you into more than 1,000 airports around the world. These lounges can vary in quality, but many of them offer free food, free drinks, plenty of power outlets, better Wi-Fi, some even offer showers. The final thing that I want you to know is that you are entitled to a full refund if your flight has been canceled by the airline. This is a federal regulation, so even if the airline doesn't want you to know this, I want you to know this. Many airlines will try to disguise this from you by offering you something like a voucher or a statement credit, or they'll try to convince you to book a flight at another really inconvenient time. But if you opt not to take another flight that they offer and you don't take those travel vouchers, if your flight has been canceled by the airline, you can get that full refund. Now, the process for getting the refund can vary, but typically involves either contacting the airline's customer service department. They might make it a little easier on you and have a form on their website that you can fill out to actually claim that cash refund. I really want to acknowledge that having a flight canceled at the last minute, especially if you're in the middle of your traveling right now, you're in a foreign city, a foreign country, or you're stranded in the airport, it can be really stressful. You're going through a lot right now, but I just want you to know that you have options and you also have that refund available to you if your flight in the US has been canceled by the airline. Also realize you have options. You might be able to get vouchers or free meals comped, even at that free hotel night stay. Check what your travel insurance policy is, and again, my best piece of advice is to be flexible and pack your patience. I'm Sally French, a travel writer at NerdWallet. I once had a flight canceled for many hours, and I made a YouTube video on this channel telling you the script I used to get compensation for a future flight, as well as a free meal right then at the airport. Watch that video and others on this channel, and if you want more, please make sure to like and subscribe.